Go ahead and get started here. Good evening. This evening is our monthly meeting of the Board of Adjustment. We are committed to a transparent process and encouragement of public comment during our meetings. We will be accepting testimony from all parties. If you wish to testify on a particular petition before us this evening using the Zoom platform, please use the raise hand feature. You can raise your hand at any time and we will recognize you at the appropriate time for the presentation of evidence for each case. If in person this evening, please hand your staff your speaker's card. Planner Robin Keefe will be moderating the hybrid meeting and will be asked to provide names of those individuals that wish to speak. I'd like to call the meeting of the City of Wildwood's Board of Adjustment to order. The board members present today are Dave Bertolino, alternate member, Kevin Lux, board member, Arnie Sprunger, board member, Michael Lee, board member, and myself, Jared Frank, chair. The Department of Planning staff present is Joe Bunis, Director of Planning, and Robin Keefe, planner. City Attorney John Young and Court Reporter Courtney Talman are also present with Ms. Talman on Zoom. First, I offer the record of affidavit of publication pertaining to today's meeting, January 16th, 2025, and take official notice of the zoning ordinance of the City of Wildwood, including Chapter 400, Article 2, authorizing and establishing the Board of Adjustment's powers and duties. Now, let me explain the hearing procedure. Please be aware the information I am about to describe is also on the Board of Adjustment's public hearing procedure handout, which was available online prior and up to tonight's meeting. This hearing is informal in nature. However, the meeting's proceedings will be recorded by a reporter for future transcription if needed. The petitions are called in the order listed on the agenda. As the petition is called, I will ask a Department of Planning staff member to read each request into the record. Thereafter, the Department of Planning will have opening remarks and a brief slide presentation. Then the petitioner or his or her representative will be asked to state their name, address, be sworn in by the court reporter, and make a brief presentation to the board explaining the nature of the requested variance and present such evidence and witness testimony that may evidence the practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship that warrant the variance. The board will only consider the unique character of the property to determine whether warranting the granting of a variance. Board members may also ask questions to clarify the facts of the petitioner's presentation. When the board is satisfied with the material presented by the petitioner, the chair will then ask if there is anyone present or online who would like to speak in favor or opposition to the requested variance. Each speaker will be asked to provide their name and address, be sworn in, and then provide their evidence and oral testimony. Procedurally, the petitioner may request a continuance at any time during the hearing prior to a call for the vote in order to bring in additional evidence or testimony. The board may also continue the proceedings. After the submission of testimony and evidence from all interested parties, the board will ask a staff person to provide Department of Planning's report on the matter if requested by any member of the board, the petitioner, or any individual that is participating in person or online. Once all witnesses have been heard, the chair will call for a motion to grant or deny, with or without conditions, then the board will vote. At that time, the presentation of evidence relating to the petition is concluded and no further evidence will be permitted. The board may make a decision today. 4 members of the board must vote in favor of the variance for it to be approved. If a variance is approved, the petitioner has 6 months to obtain the necessary permits or establish the use, or it will expire. If the board's decision is unfavorable, the petitioner has the right to appeal to the St. Louis County Circuit Court. This appeal must be done within 30 days of the decision. Ms. Keefe, are there any questions at this time?
Mr. Chair, I have no attendees on Zoom. Are there?
Okay.
Seeing
no questions at this time, the meeting will proceed. Will the department please read the request into the record, which will be followed by a brief slide presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the first item tonight is BA 1-25 Mitchell Elting 2636 Windcrest Ridge Drive, Wildwood, Missouri 63005, care of Emily Wayhart, St. Louis Hardscape Solutions LLC, 2763 West Osage Street, Pacific, Missouri 63069. Request an exception to the natural resource protection requirements and minimum yard requirements for the purpose of constructing a new modular block retaining wall having a maximum height of 8 feet and stairs associated with new deck, which is not part of the variance request, upon the property located at 2636 Windcrest Ridge Drive, locator number 21U 220326, Windcrest Subdivision, Plat 2, Lot 13, which would authorize the wall's construction within a portion of the lot's natural resource protection area and in the side yard setback area a distance of no greater than 3 feet, and the stairs construction within the side yard setback only being 0 feet from the property line. An existing block wall with a smaller foot but presently failing in its intended purpose is to be removed as part of the project. The request is contrary to the requirements of Chapter 420.200 Natural Resource Protection Standards and Procedures of the Subdivision and Development Regulations of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code, as applied to properties located in the R1A 22,000 square foot resident district, Chapter 415.120 R1A 22,000 square foot resident district regulations of the City of Wildwood zoning ordinance, and Plan Residential Development Overlay, PRD, ordinance number 630, which was approved by the City Council on July 24th, 2000. This particular property is located in Ward 2. And Mr. Chair, with your permission, before Ms. Keefe begins the slide presentation, the department would like to introduce into the record regarding this request the following items. Chapter 400, Article 2, Board of Adjustment of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code. Chapter 415 of the same City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the zoning ordinance. The file that has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning regarding this particular request and all contents contained therein, including the department's report with recommendation. And then again, any other evidence that's offered as part of tonight's public hearing, including testimony or exhibits and etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Keefe?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members. To reiterate, tonight's case involves the construction of a new retaining wall within the natural resource protection area and side yard setback, as well as a set of stairs associated with a new deck that are also planned for the side yard setback only. The subject property is located in the northeastern portion of Wildwood in the Windcrest subdivision, which consists of 155 lots in total across 5 plats. The subject lot is zoned R1A 22,000 square foot residence district, and also is a planned residential development overlay district, which was approved by Wildwood City Council in 2000, or PRD. PRDs allow for cluster development on smaller lots around large tracts of common area. This lot is also governed by the natural resource protection standards of the subdivision and development regulations. The intent of the natural resource protection standards is to protect those areas of the site that are most susceptible to erosion due to development practices and preserve additional locations on the property where stormwater runoff naturally drains. The development of these regulations was prompted by conditions that existed at the time of the city's incorporation, which were verified by an eminent soil scientist from the University of Missouri-Columbia, which were causing degradation of watersheds and related ecosystems, loss of private property, and damage to public infrastructure. The natural resource protection standards have been applied to a number of residential subdivisions, like the Windcrest subdivision, since their adoption in 1996. And the City of Wildwood does require that these requirements be included on the on the record plat and within the trust indentures of the subdivision before any lot can be sold. And the intent of that is to ensure that buyers are aware that it is located on their property. The subject lot is rectangular in shape and has a substantial slope to it. Over 30 feet of total relief is on the site. The area immediately around the residence is lawn area, with the rear of it heavily sloped and heavily wooded. The lot does contain a 2-story single-family dwelling upon it, built in 2003, with an existing retaining wall, a portion of which is in the protected area. Improvements to the site include a patio, deck, and driveway, in addition to that existing retaining wall. Here is a site plan showing the natural resource protection area that is in that green dotted line here. This is the existing retaining wall that you can see is within that natural resource protection area. The blue line here designates the new wall that is proposed by the applicant. And that protrudes into the natural resource protection area approximately 1/3 of the way through it. Here is a more detailed plan, which was supplied by the applicant, which includes notes that there is to be a new 150 linear foot retaining wall, which would be 8 feet maximum in height, with 218 linear feet of railing upon it. New deck and stairs are also planned as part of the overall project, though only the stairs are the subject of this variance request, as well as an expanded concrete patio, a new outdoor kitchen, and then the existing wall as it presently is located is planned to be removed with the new wall. The applicant has indicated that 7 trees will be removed within the natural resource protection area as part of this project. Given such, the city arborist did make a site visit on January 8th of this year. He noted those 7 trees to be removed were in the protected area. And he also noted that 18 other trees in the natural resource protection area could be affected by the construction of the wall. He noted at that time that species of trees included white oak, persimmon, American elm, shagbark hickory, and mockernut hickory. He said no grand trees were to be affected. All trees appear to be healthy and do not exhibit decay or dead branches. And he did note that if there is an erosion problem in the yard, it could be attributable to the removal of small trees and vegetation, as well as the installation of turf grass in that area. The applicant's contractor also visited the site, and I will let them speak to what they found there. This is the front of the residence looking southeast. This is Windcrest Ridge Drive looking southwest. This is Windcrest Ridge Drive looking northeast. And this is across the street. This is the side yard of the petitioner's residence. And here you can see the existing deck. We're looking southeast. And there is a closer view of that existing deck. And the general location of the proposed stairs. This is the existing retaining wall. We're atop it. We're the rear yard looking southwest. This is the existing wall standing at the bottom of it. This is the bottom of the wall looking southwest. This is the top of the wall looking southeast. This is the top of the wall looking east. And this is looking northeast. This is the rear of the residence and the existing deck, and this is looking northeast. The next door neighbors to the petitioner have indicated support of the request. One resident in the notification area did express opposition. Also, as noted in your report, while there have been variances in this subdivision granted for the natural resource protection area, staff did identify what those variances were about, and generally they have been for minimal intrusions in permanent structures such as fences, or there was a swap involved of protected area for buildable area. There was one instance where a similar project was proposed, only involving an in-ground pool. And in that case, and that had similar impacts to the one we're talking about this evening. And in that case, the board denied the request. That brings me to the end of my presentation. The Department of Planning is available for your questions at this time. And I know the applicant is here to present as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Key. Any questions right off the bat? The department?
Just for clarification, the protection area, did you have that on a map showing the back boundary of that compared to the property line? It goes all the way through the back end of the property, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. I double checked that on the record plat as well.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Keefe. At this time, will the petitioner please come forward, state his or her name, address, relation to the property, and we'll get you sworn in by the court reporter.
Going. Zach Wayhart, St. Louis Arts.
State your address, relationship to this property, and then we'll get you sworn in.
My address, our business address is 2763 West Osage Street, Pacific, Missouri.
Your relation to this property or your
I'm
role.
the contractor. We're contractor with Mitchell Elting to
Okay.
do the proposed project back there.
Just a moment, we'll get you sworn in here. Sorry.
Okay, please raise your right hand.
Yep.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this cause be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So I got contacted by Mitchell, I guess 3 months ago now, and went out to the property, looked at obviously called about erosion problem back there, and another item too, which was noted in there, which was that kitchen that we're installing for them underneath their deck, which obviously isn't in the natural protection area. So started looking at the retaining wall that was there on site, and as the graph noted, that it's actually in the protection area right now currently, and whoever built that had the right idea, but they just obviously hadn't been in the business long enough, or maybe just was trying to do something outside of the protection area and ended up inside the protection area. But the severity of that slope and the shallowness of the lot, because of that protection area being so close to the house, there's no good way to secure that erosion on that hillside other than something that's going to be completely just ugly. I mean, the only other option really is to plant, well, grass, but there's so much shade there from all of the trees, that's not going to happen. And number two is woven filter fabric and large riprap limestone to basically create an area for that water to run down without taking any silt or any further debris with it down the hill. Because I mean, it is a very steep slope. The pictures don't really do it justice. If I had to guess, I would say it was probably closer to a 2.5%, or sorry, 2.5 to 1 slope versus 3 to 1, which is typically what we like to see, like from a standpoint of watershed and everything else when we're working with different municipalities installing drainage systems and flow wells and different stuff like that. So it is a little bit steeper than that, as well as the one that's on the side yard, that's probably closer to 3 to 1, but it is steeper at the end versus at the beginning. So that's why we designed those stairs right there, just because walking down that hillside, it's super steep. And obviously the side yard is pretty tight on that side, just because those houses are pretty close together, trying to get all those in there. So our report, and granted, I'm not an arborist. I mean, I always refer to Omni, Tom Reed at Omni Tree Service, and our report, as well as the homeowner as well. My general manager was also out there taking measurements and diameters of the trees and the species and all that stuff. But 2 of those trees are declining. They're not dead yet, but they are declining. So 2 of the trees that were to be removed are actually declining. So obviously there's 7 other trees. There's 18 total trees that would possibly be affected, and that includes the 7 trees. It's not in addition to those 7 trees. It is 18 total trees. So what our plan would be to do is to install silt fence, obviously to not let any of the runoff continue to take debris into that natural resource area, and then do any different practices that would be suggested by Tom Reed over at Omni to do any type of like root pruning or anything like that to try to protect those trees. And to do that type of work, I mean, you're going to have to do some of that root pruning and everything else. We're not going to be driving right up on the sides of these bigger trees that are in that natural protection area. What we're going to do is we're going to try to stay as far away as possible. And the way that we're going to install this wall is from one end to the other versus when we typically build a wall, when we're doing some of these developments that we build walls and everything, it's like bring every piece of equipment, destroy everything around it. This one is actually going to have to be built a little bit slower, which is why our price is a little bit higher for the install, because our install practice on this one is to excavate and then work from one end all the way to the other and then safely out of there, so that we're not doing as minimal, trying to be less invasive than we normally would. Just a standard install, trying to get it done. So, but just wanted to, obviously answer any questions that you guys may have and just assure you that the impact that we are going to have on this area is going to be less than what it has been made out to be. Also, our client wants to install some trees and everything else that would still be within that protected area once we build that wall. That way we can secure the erosion control over there and put that wall in place to where we're not going to have any future issues. And the wall that's on the property right now is, it hasn't failed yet, but at some point here in the near future, it's probably built right around the same time that house was built. So at some point that drain is going to fail and you're going to have to do something anyways right there. And it's already in the natural resource area. And if we remove that wall and grade that hill out, it's going to make this hill even steeper than 2.5 to 1. It's going to be probably closer to 2 to 1 in that area. So thinking for the future.
Any questions?
Yeah, how tall is the existing wall?
The existing wall is just over 4 foot.
It's just over 4
Yeah.
foot. So the back of the proposed wall is to be 8 feet?
Correct.
Okay.
So we're going to maintain a 2% slope for watershed back there. So a minimum of 2% slope, so that way that the water that is going to continue to shed off that property as it would normally is going to make its way to the back of our retaining wall system to where that water can seep through, because basically a retaining wall system is like a giant oversized French drain, with the fabrics behind it and the aggregate behind the wall to allow that water to filter through that, but then safely exit the wall without creating hydrostatic pressure and causing that wall to fail at some point, which is what's going to happen to that upper wall, just because the lifespan of those is, 50 years in some cases.
So when the water goes down the wall on your proposed design, is there a drain at the bottom of that?
Correct. Yeah. So
And where does that go to?
So basically that is a leach pipe. All that thing is supposed to do is exhaust hydrostatic pressure. That water is designed to actually leach into the groundwater behind there, or the backfill back behind that system. So that water is supposed to be trapped in there, and that's only supposed to alleviate hydrostatic pressure. That's what it's designed to do. That's what the engineer specs out the drawing. So we have had this wall engineered as well. So we had Joe Strain draw up all this stuff and do the calculations for the runoff and all that as well.
So it's not going to drain past the wall.
Correct. It's not an impervious material on top of it. It's going to allow that water to leach into that ground behind that wall, and that wall is going to hold that, not allow it to continue to erode that hillside and manage and mitigate water runoff outside of the wall.
I'm not an engineer. Does that work?
I'm not either. I thought you were going to ask how tall I was when you're like, how tall was the wall?
Well, I'm just thinking about if you get a pretty significant rain
Mm.
and you get a lot of water
Right.
going down, that doesn't find its way beyond the wall.
It's going to slow that speed than what it is currently now. And if it's something to where we need to design something to make this work to satisfy the board and everything as well, if we need to do some sort of a flow well system or a rain garden or by BMP or something like that, we can have that designed as well. However, I think that, or what I've been told from our engineers, that this is going to minimize the speed of that runoff anyways, just because the slope is going to be raised. It's going to be a much smaller slope than what it currently is. So the speed of that runoff is not going to be anywhere near what it was. Now, if we get an 8-inch rain, I mean, even the systems that we install on some of the larger projects that we do that MSD has designed and everything else to slow the speed of runoff, it just, if you get an 8-inch rain, it doesn't really matter, on any of those things.
Yeah. Zach, is the wall primarily for erosion prevention and control as
Correct.
opposed to an aesthetic backdrop to something else that you're
So there's
building?
that's a great question. So there's two reasons. I mean, number one, what we use it for is erosion and drainage control 9 times out of 10. Now, we do utilize retaining walls for other things to create an elevation change, like in a hardscape design where we want to create, you know, an upper area and then a lower area below that to kind of create just like a, you know, a little bit of a aesthetic look to it. However, this is at the back of the property, and it's really not the back of the property. The property actually extends another, I don't have the drawing in front of me, but it's a pretty significant distance past that wall. And basically all this wall is going to do is to hold that hillside, but be an engineered wall that's not going to go anywhere. Because right now, the wall that's in place right now, I mean, it's something that was probably used off of a, you know, a master plan from an engineer or something that's just like kind of like a blanket drawing for a retaining wall that, you know, again, whoever installed it, we don't know. And the longevity of the rest of that thing, we don't know how long that thing's going to last.
What, in your professional opinion, what is the extent of existing erosion on that slope?
It's significant. It's significant. And the thing, what I was telling Mitchell too before when we were sitting down here is like there's 2 things we can do with that hillside. Is one, we can build a wall, which is going to at least look the cleanest, you know, especially with the neighborhood there. And I grew up I've lived in Wildwood my whole life until my adult life, you know, kind of moved outside of city limits, but especially in that neighborhood too. If we do what they've done on the side of 141 now, that Renato Farinello installed all that stuff 15 years ago, and now they're tearing it out because it looks so bad, is basically a large riprap material with a woven filter fabric underneath it, to where over time stuff's going to start growing through that no matter how much fabric you put underneath it, and it's just going to be an eyesore. So it's going to stick out like a sore thumb too, with bright white rock back there. I mean, it's just, for me, I mean, and again, I know this isn't anything about aesthetics or price or anything else, because I don't think price is in question. I think that he's going to spend more money to do it this way to make it look better versus doing that. So the only other option too would be, you know, some trying to get grass to grow back there, but with all the shade, I mean, it's just going to be, it's going to be spotty at best. Wash.
Last question, Zach. So the rest of the improvements, the patio, all that other stuff, that is going to be done regardless of what the decision is.
Oh yeah, I believe so. I mean, all that stuff's going to be done. I mean, and the stairs that are going down there. And then when we started looking at that wall, I was like, well, this is how you need to fix this. And that's when we kind of came up with the solution. And then we got involved with our engineer to just basically check our math and make sure everything looks good and bless it for us. So the stairs would have to be done too, just because, I mean, it's a steep slope, and there's, you know, again, with how shallow the lot is back there, and then how shallow that the natural protection line makes that property right there. I mean, we're working with nothing if we're not going into that, encroaching on in that line a little bit.
Like I said, I lied. One more question.
Yeah.
And that is, if I stood in their backyard and looked right and left along the property lines of the other existing homes,
Correct.
do any of the others have retaining walls?
You know what? I would be lying to you if I told you yes or no, but from my memory, it's been months since I've been out there. Tony, you were out there yesterday. I don't remember personally, but I mean, I've seen the erosion though in the other sides too, and it's just spotty grass, big divots and all that kind of stuff. And it's going to continue to happen.
Like,
Any questions?
Is there a reason why you chose to put that back wall where you did?
You know, that's a good question. And yes, there is, because I mean, where that slope starts to level out right there, that's where it starts. So when an engineer designs that wall, so the pressure of that wall is pushing down on the toe of the wall, which is the base of the wall. So we want to get that toe of that wall down to the least amount of slope in front of it, or they call it a toe slope. So basically the 15 to 30 feet in front of that wall system, we want that as flat as possible, so that way we don't have to go as deep with a footing or do any like a keyway or something like that, because sometimes they'll design something to where we have to excavate even more severely. And then that's talking about, you know, possibly damaging some of these trees. I mean, you start digging a keyway and putting some sort of a piering system and foundation, all that kind of stuff. I mean, you're really talking about a super invasive project. So my idea was pushing this thing back as far as we could to where we could get to the most minimal toe slope. But I mean, there probably is a better place to go, which would be another 15 feet or so, 15, 20 feet into that where it's like really flat. But again, we were trying to do it. I mean, I felt comfortable with that toe slope, which it's, you know, as close to flat as you can get in Missouri. So,
And when you talk about that toe slope, you're talking about the area between the house and where the retaining wall would be.
no, sorry. So the area
It's
in
on-
between, so the bottom of the wall. So picture the top of the wall here, the bottom of the wall here. The toe slope is the slope that runs in front of it. The top of the wall slope is just the slope of the backyard, but the toe slope is what's in
Yeah.
front of the toe of that wall.
Yeah, and what do you consider the front of the wall?
The front of the wall would be pointing towards the protection area,
Okay,
towards the back of the lot.
Robin, are you able to pull up one of the,
Yeah.
maybe the, like, I'm looking at this here, maybe that.
So basically, on the diagram that they have shown here is where that line, the blue line is, where the wall in between there and the back of the property where it says lot 6. That would be the 15 to 30 feet in front of that, in between that blue line and the lot 6 would be considered your toe slope. So the toe slope where the existing wall is, the little kind of like thumbnail shaped wall that's right there, that toe slope is close to 2.5 to 1. With most of the builders and everything that we work for, when they want to spend it, obviously you guys know the drill with them, they want to spend the least amount of money as possible to do any of the building and improvements that they do. So when we do retaining walls for McBride or Rolls or all these different companies that we work for, their rule of thumb is 3 to 1 slope. If it's not, we make it a 3 to 1 slope, we only build that wall up to a 3 to 1 slope. We're not making it level, we're not making it, you know, we're not doing anything over and above that. So
if you move this direction, you get into more slope.
more invasive with the footing that would have to install into that. So there's the slope that's in between the wall. That's why we push the wall to there, because the wall that's existing right now where the thumbnail is,
This thing,
yep, in between that one and the wall that we have proposed, that's where that slope is super steep right there. That's where you have that 2.5 to 1 slope in between those two walls.
and if you move the line that direction,
It would be, from an engineering standpoint, it would be a more surefire, this thing's never gonna move situation. Now, the way that we have it designed, this thing's never gonna go anywhere. It's a deeper footing, but I mean, if we push that thing another 15 feet into that natural protection. Destroy more trees, and we don't want to do that. As minimal impact as possible, as well as in addition to what we have proposed, once we. Get back from you guys. To put a plan together, and I asked the homeowner if they would want to do some time, stuff like that, and they were more than happy to do some native tree, all that as part of this project.
So what you're saying is that you believe you struck a balance between,
Think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to not have to destroy any of those trees, but I mean,
Sure.
it's, again, it's, you know, we can make it work there.
and we have done other variances where we submit to the, we make a condition that, that submit a landscaping plan.
Yeah.
That,
We'd be more than happy. to
so the
do that.
homeowner would be, okay.
so one thing that I maybe just could use some clarification in the application. And I think I'm remembering this right. The rationale for just doing this in the first place seemed to hinge more on use, like
Well,
safety for the kids or whatever.
Sure, I mean, you could absolutely
But-
use the yard space to, yes, whatever. Ladder for sure. Not like an aesthetic thing, though, for sure. You're not even gonna see any of this wall from the back of their house.
Right.
You're gonna see the cap,
Yeah, you'll see the cap.
and then obviously that's it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any? Thank you. Appreciate it, Zach. Any other members? I guess no one online still, Ms. Keefe, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, I do not have anyone online, but I do have one speaker's
That'd
card.
be my next question. Anybody else in the audience? Ms. Roth, come on up. I could have you state your name, address, relationship to this property, and we'll get you sworn in.
Hi, I'm Randall Raw. I'm at 2644 Windcrest Ridge Drive, which is 2 homes south of where Mitchell's property is located. I'm also one of the trustees for Windcrest HOA. And the purpose for me being here is to share more of a personal testimony regarding Mitch and his approach to projects. And then
So I'm sorry, just I don't mean to cut you off. I just go ahead and get you sworn in and then we'll go into, thank you. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you off, Ms. Roth.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Yes.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. So I appreciate the Board of Adjustment giving me the opportunity to share a few words. As I mentioned, I'm one of Mitch's neighbors, live 2 doors down. I've lived in the community for 20 years at this point. And I know that through my interactions since Mitch has moved into the community, he always tries to go the extra mile to make sure projects strike that balance between what works for his family and what works for the community. And as one of the trustees in the HOA, it is very important that we do find that balance. So there's no trustee on the HOA who has engineering experience or is an expert. So we really defer to the Board of Adjustment and Mr. Vunich have some experience. I know that Mr. Vunich is highly experienced in these matters and demonstrates incredible judgment. In talking to Mitch, we understand that there is an extensive landscaping plan. So we're hoping that, whatever impact there is by any tree removal could potentially be offset or would be offset by additional landscaping in that, because we do understand as an HOA, the sensitivity of having the detention basin just below the homes. It's actually right behind my home. And we understand that that detention basin does flow into Cox Creek. And as a group of trustees, we understand that Cox Creek and the erosion there is a very sensitive matter for Wildwood. So bottom line is, as the trustees, we want to try to find that balance and allow Mitch and his family to have a nice project, but at the same time, trust in the judgment of the Board of Adjustment to make sure that this project is done in a manner that will have a neutral to positive impact on the environment in Wildwood.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Any questions for Mr. Yes. Yes, sir. Director Munich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Roth, I assume the trustees did receive a packet of information from the petitioner and you've reviewed it.
Yes, we have. So, but I do want to stress, none of us are engineers. So I learned a lot just in the previous testimony. So we're just trying to, like I said, strike the balance between allowing homeowners to use their property, but also recognize the needs of the community and want to make sure that everything's done in a solid manner that satisfies all parties. And we trust the judgment of the board and Mr. Vunich to make sure that happens.
And we had the neighbors on each side or approve, because quite honestly, they'd see it probably more than the homeowner. So, and you, that's your understanding as well.
Right. That's correct.
Questions for the association?
Just to clarify, you said you were appearing on your own personal behalf. To give your personal view, does the HOA have an official position of, have they approved it? Do
They approved it, and what was sent back is we approve it, but stressing the fact that we aren't qualified to say this will not have any negative impact on the erosion. And we do understand, because we've had multiple meetings with Wildwood about the detention basins and Cox Creek and that as long as Wildwood either proposes or has adequate conditions to make the project work, we would be in favor of that. So, but we're not qualified to say, hey, here's what we think
Yeah, understood.
it needs to happen to make it work. So we just like to see everybody happy and Mitch be able to proceed with the project and the environment to not be negatively impacted.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Any other speaker cards? Anybody else in the audience that would like to speak in favor or opposition?
Mr. Chair, I have no additional speaker cards. See anyone from the audience who wishes to speak?
Seeing none, would anybody like to hear an oral presentation of the department's reports? Seeing none. Any other final comments from the department?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, as you are aware from the department's recommendation report, we are recommending denial of the new wall in this case. The department is supportive of the variances for the stairs that are in the side yard setback, as well as a variance for the existing wall. And if it need be for that wall to be reconstructed, but in that same location. The reason for our position is this is a substantial variance to the natural resource protection area. This new wall protrudes 1/3 of the way into it. It affects 18 trees. You've read our site visit notes from the city arborist who was certified as such. We are concerned that if these types of requests are approved to, this lot and then the next lot that has a similar problem and the next lot that has a similar problem, that will chip away at that natural resource protection area and the natural wooded buffer that exists between this property and the properties to the rear of it. The department did communicate with the applicant and express some of these concerns. We indicated we'd be interested in having a meeting with the applicant to discuss, potentially some alternate proposals or perhaps see a landscape plan that detailed their plans for that. We have not had a chance to have either that meeting or seen a landscape plan before this meeting, which is why we proceeded with the recommendation that we did. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keefe.
One
Well,
question.
few questions.
So is there a reason that you guys would support rejection as opposed to approval subject to a landscaping plan?
Mr. Lux, based upon the comments that the Board of Adjustment members provided tonight to the applicant's representative and in regards to the trustee, if the board is inclined to proceed forward with the variance, we would ask that the contractor first follow the procedures for the pre-construction meeting, which ensures all of the protection steps are in place and in place according to city code. We would ask for a landscape plan that would address the removal of the trees, at least the trees that are to be removed and those that have been identified as potentially impacted. And then finally, we would ask that the board require the city arborist to approve the steps that have been mentioned by the applicant's representative, the root pruning, et cetera. So there'd be three components that if the board is inclined to proceed forward, we respectfully request be part of that action. Thank you.
Mr. Brennan.
Well, yeah, I understand the objective of the natural resource protection area, and they're trying to minimize disturbance there. But I do wonder, is there a sense of being able to do responsible development in a natural resource protection area where you are going to disturb it, but I think what we all care about is what's the net result. And if the net result is no worse than, but potentially better than what it is today in terms of like runoff and that sort of thing, is there at least rationale then to consider something like that?
Well, it's a very good question, Member Sprunger, and I guess I have two responses to it. First, the majority of the disturbance isn't going to go back into impervious surface, meaning they're not going to put asphalt or concrete between the new wall boundary and the existing patio and the new kitchen. So it is going to be soil. So the type of soil and how it's placed is important. Obviously, if you put chert and clay, it's not going to be as absorptive as possible. So first and foremost, there is that component. Secondly, the water coming off the back of the house and the rear yard area is sheet flow now. What was described by petitioner's representative is they're going to manage that and for the most part kind of detain it and then disperse it at a slower rate. At least that's what I took from the testimony. So in regards to the wall, it certainly could make things neutral or better. Again, the perspective of the department is always the natural resource protection standard and the protected area was on that lot before anybody and anywhere saw it. Couldn't proceed forward with the sale of a lot without that being on the record plat, being in the trust indentures, and from the perspective of the department, Levinson Building and Realty had a site plan in the display home showing exactly what you were buying. So we acknowledge that we do every step we can to ensure that we purchase those lots, particularly the first buyers, maybe not the second or third or thereafter, understand the impact. And there's a legitimate reason for it. If any of you ever want to take a walk with the watershed erosion control task force, excuse me, in Clark Street, you'll see why we're cautious. Now, saying all of that, you've made a good point. There seems to be accommodations on the property owner's part. And so certainly we wouldn't slam our fists on the table and say, don't do this. If you do it, let's do it with the acknowledgement that there's some restorative steps that can be taken. It'll even make it better.
Agree.
Thank you.
Pickleball court would not be as favorable to this. Agreed. Any other questions, Jeff?
No other questions for me. No.
Miles? Okay. At this time, we will close the proceeding for a vote. May I have a motion to approve, a motion to deny, or a motion to approve with conditions?
So are we kind of at a point now where we can talk a little bit amongst ourselves here? I think that's where we're at.
I think we ought to get a motion on the floor before we discuss.
Okay.
Jared?
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the request with the following conditions, that a landscape plan be submitted and approved by the Department of Planning, that the arborist, and I don't know the exact words, but the arborist is involved in the decision as to the tree removals and perhaps replacements and some, and that there be a pre-construction meeting with the department to finalize all plans before anything is moved. That is my motion.
Do we have a second to that motion as stated?
I think that follows the spirit of the three contingencies, so I will second that motion.
Okay.
So I just want to be kind of clear about this. I know the motions are been made. My concern is that we have done everything, we, the city, has done everything possible to ensure that we don't create a negative impact to the project or to that natural resource protection area. It has to be at least neutral, and I would like for it to be better than what it is today. So I don't know if in this motion we feel a sense of, I don't know if certainty is the right word, but we're confident that that would be the case. I think I would like to ask Mr. Vunich if he feels like that the conditions that we've talked about would provide adequate protection or whatever for the project to move forward without compromising the resource protection area.
Well, Mr. Sprunger, I cannot guarantee that we're going to improve the conditions. That's often very difficult, particularly with the storms we get these days. But I think I could say that we may leave the condition neutral because first and foremost, and we're addressing a steep slope that increases the speed of runoff, not decreases it. And we're now, with the motion as stated, adding a landscape component. And for the most part, I think we can work with the property owner, the property owner's representative, and our city arborist and figure out a solution, get the right amount of trees at good locations that will basically address what the removal will do to the area. I'm confident that our new city arborist, our Department of Public Works, and the applicant's representative at the hardscape company, we can figure this out.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Munich.
So just to slightly reword that or rephrase the question, I guess. So is there any other concerns or contingencies the city would insist upon in order to get to where the net result would meet the concerns of Mr. Sprunger?
No, again, I believe particularly having the city's arborist involved and then again, the landscaping component. I don't know the exact number of trees or potential plantings, and certainly we'll be judicious. We're not wanting the property owner to have a blank check. I don't think that's fair. But certainly if 18 trees are at risk, I think 18 trees may be the minimum, that starting point for discussions, and then we go from there. What I found with our new city arborist, and this is just kind of a sidebar, we used to require 2.5 to 3 inch caliber trees. And what he's telling us now is basically that inch to inch and a half caliber with appropriate deer protection actually grow faster and stronger. And so they say, I think we can find a nice solution.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, close the proceeding. Yeah, if I would need Mr. Young to weigh in to take a few steps back if the petitioner wanted to add anything to what Director Bunich had said.
Right now, the hearing has been closer.
Okay. So to revisit, we have a motion out there to approve with conditions, 3 in particular, as stated on the record by Director Bunich. In the spirit of those 3 conditions, I think we've got that. So at this time, we will vote on that. We have a second. Yeah, we do have a second. So at this time, we will call for a vote. Mr. Sprunger, how do you vote?
I'll approve.
Mr. Berlino?
Approve.
Mr. Lux?
Approve.
Mr. Lee? I vote to approve with the conditions as stated. So congratulations, the variance is approved. We have a few. We'll give Director Bunich just a moment here and go into the next items on the agenda. The second item on the first item of additional business is to approve the minutes of the board's December 19th, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those meeting minutes?
I'll motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second to approve the minutes. Mr. Bernardino, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Lux?
Approve.
Mr. Sprunger?
Approve.
Mr. Lee? And I approve as well. So those minutes are approved. The second item of additional business is the continued discussion of the board's draft bylaws. May I have a motion to go into a closed session under legal actions, causes of actions, litigation, or privileged communications between the city's representatives and its attorneys according to RSM MO 610.021. We have-
I'll motion to go into closed session.
Do I have a second to go into closed session?
I'll second.
Mr. Berlino, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Lux?
Approve.
Mr. Sprung?
Approve.
Frunger? Mr. Lee? And I approve to go into the closed session as well. Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, it amazes me when I see girls doing that. I know a lot that can. Irving, did you upload?
So I said, I go, I'm just gonna ask my doctor to give me a freaking MRI. She was actually.
Oh,
not
they
gonna do that.
won't. No.
I'm like, I wish they would just give me a whole freaking scan, but they want people to get sick.
I agree. So today was my first day of getting Zoladex.
What's that?
Let me put myself on mute. Hold on. Ms. Keefe, do I need to go back on the record? This is so late.
Yep.
Talk to you about that. We're gonna close here just.
We're back online. Okay. At this time, I request a motion to go back into regular session with a roll call vote. We have a motion to go back into regular session. Second,
I'll second.
Mr. Berlino. Mr. Lux,
Yes.
Mr. Sprunger,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So we're back into the regular session. This time, do we have, or help me out here, Director Munish?
Mr. Chair, there are no other items on tonight's agenda, so a motion to adjourn would be appropriate, and I'd like to thank Ms. Tallman for her patience.
Just a moment, Director Munish, we need
Motion on the
a
bylaws.
motion on the bylaws. Yeah. So at this time, do we have a motion to accept or to adopt the bylaws as amended? How would,
So-
Mr. Chair, if I
Yeah.
could make a suggestion
Yeah.
to first have a motion to approve the bylaws
okay,
as presented, have a second, and then before a vote, a motion to amend Article 2, Section 5 of the bylaws to provide for the election of a vice chair.
so at this time, do we have a motion to accept the bylaws?
I'll make a motion to accept the bylaws.
And a second?
Second.
Second. And
And now if someone would make a motion to amend Article 2, Section 5 to provide for the election of a vice chair.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to amend Article 2, Section 5 for adding the concept of a vice chair.
a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Berlino, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Lux?
Yes.
Mr. Sprunger?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So the bylaws are,
Do we need two motions, two votes?
okay.
Yep.
Okay. So
So we just approved the
So-
amendment.
Yes.
approve the amendment. Okay,
Now we're
so,
approving the bylaw.
all right. So do I have a motion to approve?
There's a motion on the
Okay, I'm
table.
sorry. So a vote, we'll do a vote for to
To accept
the bylaws. Mr.
As
Mr.
amended.
Berlino? As amended. Mr. Lux?
Yes.
Mr. Sprunger?
Yes.
Mr. Lee? And I vote yes as well. So the bylaws are accepted as amended. So.
Mhm.
Now, we consider this meeting, unless there's any other new business, Director Munish, we consider this meeting adjourned. Thank you. Sorry, that was.
Good night, Courtney.
Night.